Alright, so in this video, we are going to discuss a few WNBA players. Now, I pretty much saw the WNBA draft, and female college basketball has been going crazy because of a few of them. Obviously, Caitlin Clark and whatnot. But I went on Google and I typed in the most attractive college female basketball players, right? And the two that popped up was Angela Reese and Cameron Brinks. So I don't know if y'all guys know who these people are, but since college basketball is going crazy right now, especially for the female side, I decided to do this. Now, I will say that I'm not going to show the ratings, but if you do want to see the ratings, make sure to click the link down in my description that is going to say the data sheet. And from there, you'll be able to see what the rating is. But yeah, so we're going to start off with Cameron Brinks, and then I'm going to switch back to Angela Reese, and I'm going to compare both of their faces pretty much. And also, I'm going to go through the good features and the bad features first before I start on that. All right, so this is for Cameron Brinks. So let's start off with her worst features. So she has too much chin projection. Her outer canthus is too high, so that's the canthal tilt. Her rounded nasal tips, her nose towards the end of the tip around her is a little bit too rounded out. It's too bulbous. She does have a wide mouth. Her forehead is recessed back too far, and her chin projection creates a mental crease. All right. So typically when people have a very strong chin, you'll see like a mental crease on their face, normally around like a mental fold. But yeah, it's usually for people with very strong chins that you'll typically see this. All right, so her best features is high cheekbones, which she does have, very high set cheekbones, long mandible, gray eye spacing, good chin, low body fat, and she also has a balanced lower third. All right, so this one is for Angela Reese. Let's start off with her worst features. So she has bad eye spacing, which I will talk about. That will be the first thing I'll talk about. Her face may appear too elongated, and typically taller people do have elongated face, and I believe they call it lengthlatism or something like that, where their body is just almost kind of like stretches like really far. Long neck, long head, long everything, long hands, long just everything is just very lengthy. And that can also affect the head size, the head shape, and also the features. She does have a very short philtrum length, short mouth width, very long nose, and she does have a rounded side view facial profile. So her facial convexity is very rounded out. So her best features is low body fat, upturned eyes, tight skin, prominent philtrum groove, great head shape, and dark eyebrows. And yeah, so, and another thing too is for both of them, they both do have they both are low body fat, and that is obviously because there are athletes. Usually athletes are lower in body fat percentages, and they got full points for being a low body fat. So so they did very well in terms of body fat percentage. So that's usually something that is good for athletes. It's being low body fat makes you more attractive. And yeah. All right, so this is the first picture, which is Angela Reese. And this is her biggest flaw that I've noticed, which is her eye separation ratio, which is the ESR. And typically what the ESR is a very simple measurement, is probably the most important front view facial measurement. And this front view facial measurement is going to be worth a whole lot of points. And if you miss this one, that pretty much sets the whole thing up. So it goes from the zygomatic bone, which is going from end to end for the cheekbones. And it goes from one side of the cheekbones all the way to the other side of the cheekbones, and then it goes from the pupils, so each pupil from the left one to the right one, and that is being divided with each other. And when you divide that, with each other, she gets a percentage of 53. So she gets 53% for having her eyes are a little bit too spaced far apart relative to her face. And this is extremely noticeable, especially when you see her in person. Sometimes, I mean, you can kind of see that in videos too. If you look at her TikToks, that's usually like the first thing that you notice, like, why is her eyes a little bit far apart? But this is probably going to be her main or her biggest flaw that she has. So I felt like I needed to, say that. But yeah, so let's go to Cameron Brink's and see what hers is at. All right, so for Cameron Brink's, hers is at 44.9%, which is a tier 2. Now, this was extremely close to being perfect. Like, I'm talking about 0.1%. So essentially, this is good eye spacing relatively. So she does not have this problem at all. And yeah. All right, so the next one is the total facial width to height ratio. And the total width to height face ratio is pretty much going from the top of the hairline all the way down to the bottom of the chin. And still the same thing with the zygomatic cheekbones. So going from end to end. And so let me just do that right now to illustrate it. So going from here all the way down to about right here. And then from one side of the face to the other. And what is going on is I'm dividing this line, the vertical line, by the horizontal line. And I come up with a ratio of 1.43. Now, 1.43 is extremely long, especially for a female. For a male, it's going to be a different case, but a female, that is more on the longer end. So you will be deducted more points for it, unfortunately. And another thing too is I noticed what she's doing, and she's kind of doing this on purpose, by the way. And some of y'all might not notice this, but as you can see, this right here, these baby hairs that she's doing, I believe that she's doing this on purpose. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. I understand, like, some people actually do it for stylistic reasons, and obviously black women. But still, I feel like she's doing it to kind of give it the illusion that her head is actually smaller than what it really is. But I know that this is her actual hairline, the root of it. So that's where I'm going to start and end it at. So let's see what Cameron Brink's is. All right, so Cameron Brink's, so it was kind of hard to see like the top of her hairline, obviously, because, the color of her hair. But I noticed the root was right here. And then I followed down all the way to her chin. Let me just do this again. But y'all understand what I'm saying. So the vertical is being divided by the horizontal. And I pretty much came up with 1.27. And 1.27 is on the shorter end, but it's not bad at all. And you'll rather, for a female would rather have a shorter head than a longer head. And her head is very she has very wide cheekbones, and also her cheekbones, and I already said this again, is pretty higher set. I mean, like, just looking at this line that I drew right now, I know it's not a straight line, but that's pretty much around where her cheekbones are at. And like I said, she does have pretty high cheekbones. But yeah, so her head is on the shorter side, but it's not too short to be considered a flaw. All right, so the next one is the mid-face ratio. Cameron Brink's mid-face is 1.04. 1.04 is actually compact. And yeah, you do want to have a more compact mid-face ratio for a female. And yeah, they just have more facial features that are just more tighter together. And yeah, so she did well on the mid-face ratio. She did well on a lot of measurements, actually. So this is typically what's going to happen with attractive people. If you pass multiple measurements, you're pretty much going to pass majority of the measurements as well. So yeah. Now for Angela Reese. Now I noticed y'all can probably clearly see what's going on. Her mid-face ratio is actually very tight, very, very compact. Now, it's better to have a more compact face than a elongated face, because if you just have a horse face in general, it's not going to really suit anybody well. But if you have a very compact face, it's still not going to suit anybody well, but still it has a more aggressive look to it. And and one of the main reasons why her face is, or her mid face is very compact, is obviously because of her ESR, her eye separation ratio. So clearly, going from pupil to pupil, that line right there is more longer than that blue line that y'all see in the middle. So she does have a very compact face, which will put her at a tier 6. And but if she was on the other end and she had an elongated mid face, then that probably might have been a tier 7, which not that many people get anyway. But yeah. All right, so for the next measurement is the ipsilateral alier angle. And this was a bit tricky to do Angela Reese because of her eyelashes that she wears. Obviously, those are extensions. Those are not really her actual eyelashes. But pretty much I go from the outer portion of the of her canthus, so right here, all the way down to the nasal tip. And I can go by the nasion, or the subnasal, I mean, but sometimes the nasal tip might actually extend past that area or that portion. I will show you with the next person, Cameron Brinks, but sometimes I just go with the nasal tip instead, because the nasal tip can also be droopy, or the nose can be droopy, and that can also extend the ipsilateral alier angle as well. But yeah, I go from the outer canthus all the way down to that tip right there. And pretty much then this is how I get the angle. But pretty much hers is at 96 degrees. And 96 isn't really bad. It's actually perfect, really. But anything more than this is going to be outside of what is ideal. It's still going to be, decent or normal within reason. But yeah, but 96 is perfectly fine. And also another thing that I believe that helped her out with this, because her eyes are actually spaced far apart relatively, is her having a very lengthy nose. So she does have somewhat of a long nose. So her nose in length is actually helping her ipsilateral alier angle be a little bit more on the normal side. All right, so for Cameron Brinks. All right, so for hers, and this is what I was trying to talk about. So as you can see right here, her nasal tip kind of droops down, and this is the reason why I'm talking about. So instead of going from the nasion, which is somewhat right over here, I have to go where the nasal tip is at to get a more accurate depiction of what's really going on. So I have to take it from the tip of the nose, and then go from the outer canthus all the way down to that tip right there for both of them. I know this is not that accurate, and this is how I get the angle, just that simple. And for hers is actually very narrow, and she has it at 84 degrees, and 84 degrees is actually a tier 2, so she doesn't get full points for it. You don't want your ipsilateral alier angle to be too narrow, and for females, that's just not the case. Actually, females have, because her nose is actually pretty lengthy as well too, not just Angela Reese nose, but her nose is pretty lengthy in the length, but her eyes is actually pretty close set. So that's why the angle is at 84 degrees. So, but it's not too close set, but it's on the close set range, as I discussed with the ESR. And yeah. All right, so Angela Reese's mental labial angle is normal within reason at 119. Her chin is not too projected, which you don't want it to be, and her lips is actually very projected, and that can be assessed through the Z angle, which I will discuss later on, but it's still forwardly projected within reason, and obviously because of her ethnic group. But yeah, so she does have a good curvature for her mental labial angle. And yeah. Now, this is one of her biggest flaws in my opinion, because I did take some points off for this for the men. I did take some points off for this because of the mental crease near her chin. If you look at her from the front view profile, and I did take some points from the miscellaneous features, because it is a very prominent crease on her chin if you look at her from the front view profile. And I looked at multiple pictures of it too, just to make sure, and that seems to be the case. So if you have a chin projection that is very, very projected, it can also affect your front view, your front view profile. But anyway, hers is at 91 degrees. 91 degrees is very, very tight of an angle. You typically want to be around the 110 to 130 degrees. That's like the normal range, and even 140 is still, you know, reasonable. But very, very tight angles like this, 91, is not ideal at all. And usually people with very projected chins actually have slightly recessed a lower third or a jaw. So their jaws are usually slightly recessed. Obviously for her, I'm gonna say it right now, hers is not recessed at all, but just a somewhat of a trend that I typically see with celebrity face. Now, this is a measurement that I haven't really discussed at all really in my YouTube channel, but I've been had this, and this is the angle of the lower face. And with the angle of the lower face, it's almost kind of like a mixture of the submental cervical angle and also the submental cervical angle to the lower lip. So with this angle, instead of going to the lower lip, from the submental angle to the lower lip, is going from underneath the jaw area all the way to the subnasal. So this is almost kind of like a halfway version of kind of like a facial convexity, but the only difference is what actually makes this angle is obviously, you know, if you have any fat or loose skin underneath the chin or jaw region. With that, how forwardly projected is your mid-face area, meaning the maxilla and also a little bit of the upper jaw region. And hers is at 101 degrees, and that is normal within reason. That is actually ideal. And yeah, so she does have good forward growth of her mid-face, and she doesn't have really that much loose skin underneath her jaw region, which is perfect. All right, so for Angela Reese, same thing goes for her as well. Nothing crazy or anything like that. This is perfectly fine as well. And I actually use a different picture to assess this. I felt like this was the better picture for it. But yeah, so like I said, with female athletes, they're usually lower body fat percentages, and I feel like that helps their face look more appealing because you can see their bone structure very well. And yeah, so with that, being active can help you tremendously. And I'm saying this because I rate people's faces all the time, and a lot of them are actually, you know, could be higher in their ratings if only they're more active in their life, or they eat a better, healthier diet, meaning less calories or calorie counting, or even fasting. Things like that can also help tremendously. All right, so this is the last measurement for today, and I'm not going to put too much emphasis on it because it really goes based off of a person's ethnicity or ethnic group at the end of the day, in my honest opinion. But for Miss Brinks here, she has 80 degrees. 80 degrees is something that's usually expected from a Caucasian person. So this is nothing outside of the norm, and it's still within the normal range. But yeah, so she does have lips that are somewhat recessed for her face, but not too recessed or anything like that. But it's on the more recessed side of things. But you know, I've seen measurements that are 85 and plus, and it can be from another ethnic group as well. So yeah, but this is nothing. And another thing too is this is how I also know that a person has good lip measurements, which Cameron Brinks also does have good lip measurements as well. With the Z angle, one thing I did also notice is that, as you can see, I don't know if guys can see like where my mouse is, but her upper lip and her bottom lip actually somewhat touches that line. If your upper lip and your bottom lip touches the line or is very close to the line, that is very, very good sign to say that you have somewhat of a good lip alignment, because what that says is that the upper lip is in front of the lower lip. And yeah, and it's also going from the chin. So not only this is one lip measurement, this is actually two lip measurements in one. So that is the H line, and that is also the S line as well. So that is two lip measurements in one. I know some of y'all might be confused, but trust me when I say that, she does have very good lip measurements too. So the Z angle can help for other things as well. All right, so for hers, now this is the opposite too. She doesn't have the best lip alignment, which is okay. A lot of people don't, and that is perfectly fine. Now, albeit she is African American, and this is something typically that you're going to see for African Americans, obviously, because you know, African Americans, their mouth protrudes more than others, and bimaxillary protrusion or prognatism, and that's pretty much the fourth growth of the actual mouth itself. So that's why you have lower angles, and also lip fullness. So 68 degrees is perfectly fine. Like I said again, usually anything between 60 to 69 degrees is perfectly normal for an African American person. So this is normal within reason. But I also want to talk about this right here, and I don't know if I can see my mouse, but if you do the Z angle and your lower lip is the only thing touching that line, that probably tells you that you have bad lip alignment. So just to let y'all guys know, and her upper lip is nowhere close to this line as well. So that is also another bad sign. But if it's your lower lip that's only touching this line, that tells me a whole lot. So yeah, so that's kind of just another way I can kind of assess somebody's lip measurements with another measurement. And yeah, you know, it's kind of like a crazy thing, because like I said, a lot of these measurements are like a chain reaction. They're like combinations with each other. They're like entwined. But anyway, yeah, so if you want to get your face rated, make sure to DM me, and just give me about 3 to 4 days. I'm a little bit busy because I got a lot of people trying to get their face rated. And yeah, so make sure to be patient, and I'll get to you. So peace.